Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and today I'm very honored to speak with none other than Charles Cao. Charles, thank you very much, mate, for being on the channel today.
Hi, Brad. I'm happy to talk with you today.
I appreciate it because it's quite early where you are. Now, if people aren't familiar, Charles is actually the co-founder of a very important and exciting blockchain project called Nebula AI. And today we're going to be discussing that at length. But before we do, I thought it would be important and prudent to mention some of Charles's background. So Charles has been an electronic engineer. He has graduated from the Fudan University. He also has a master's in electrical and computer engineering. He has worked at several different businesses and projects enterprises, including SAP, Expedia, and Paysafe, among others. He's also had a strong involvement in AI and also blockchain technology for many years, and he is strongly involved in the North American community of blockchain. So Charles, obviously you're well experienced in both AI, in terms of your workplace, and also blockchain. Thank you very much for being on the channel. We're excited to hear about your project. So let's talk about Nebula AI. It's stated as the third generation of blockchain, a decentralized AI blockchain, and it's designed for integrated AI and sharing economies. So can you tell us, obviously they are key points and they're key words, but could you tell us a little bit more, extrapolating on those terms, exactly what is, in a more simplistic sense, Nebula AI, Charles?
Yeah, basically Nebula AI enable people to contribute to the AI computing by providing their high performance computers, even mining machine rigs for AI computing. So people can make profit of providing those services and get paid via the blockchain. So that's basically how it works.
Okay, so it's really looking at incentivizing the use of AI on the blockchain.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's look at this in much more detail. So on your website, and actually in your white paper more specifically, you claim that you are the world's first AI blockchain system. Now, I wanted to discuss this with you quickly because there are many different AI projects right now that I've read in white papers, and I'm sure many of the audience have as well. So how can you claim that you are the world's first AI blockchain system? And why do you?
Yeah, because when we start a project, we analyze all the existing work, and we found that nobody actually has it get it done. So in our company, we get the coding part first. We set up a protocol from early last year, and after all the protocol was working, we started working on the white paper. So basically, before we publish the work, nobody else has done prove it works.
I
There's
see.
some conception, something like that together. So that's why we are claims that we are the first one, and we also have working examples on our website.
Hmm.
There was a quantum AI programming and another decentralized AI apps called Sensitive Analyze. So those two applications already online. People can go there, try by themselves. There are actually several people were already posting their testing result in the Telegram group.
I see. That's fascinating. So you've backmapped from the coding right through until the white paper, which is in the reverse of the majority of blockchain projects right now. No doubt your GitHub is very active.
Yeah, we have we have three repositories open to the public.
Hmm.
There was also other repositories which is not open yet. There are about seven other repositories not opening because we would like to open those repositories after the fundraising.
I see. So you've got three repositories open now and many more to come. It's exciting,
Yeah.
and obviously those who are focused on the coding aspects certainly look into it. It is a way to verify much of the information that Charles is providing, and it is exciting to hear that you have such a robust coding system already in place. So in that respect, I did want to ask you though, given the saturation of AI projects in the market, are you aware of any others that have done this similar approach, where they've approached it from a coding aspect and moved across into the white paper?
There was a couple of other companies also working on AI conceptions,
Hmm.
something like Matrix, something like Singularity.io.
Yes,
So basically, most of them was started with white paper. So Singularity is doing better job than others because they also release some code after the fundraising. But most other companies, something like Matrix and another one is Neuro AI. They have the paper, and they even get the coins already listing on the exchanges, but the coding part is still a weakness.
I see. So they're relying entirely on developing, whereas you argue that you've fully developed and ready to go. So let's talk about now your consensus system for decentralized data, specifically more the NBAI. Can you tell us a bit more about this consensus system?
Yeah, there was two stages for Nebula AI. The first part is using the proof of work with we call it the Helix system.
Right.
So Helix system actually is why we call it Helix, because this is a Nebula cloud which is closest to the Earth. So which in our means it shows the potential that it's the easiest, fastest achieved system of the Nebula AI goal. So it's still using proof of work. So the major problem it need to be done in Helix is how to distribute the task among different machines, how to partition the data, the encryption. Those problems need to be solved in the Helix system, because only those problems be solved, it can be commercial used.
I see. So in that sense, the first consensus component is the Helix, but you also have another component called the Orion.
Yeah, Orion is different. Orion is using the proof of group. So basically that with Orion, it depends on where you are. You will always join your closest network. If nobody is around you, you will still have a new group. So that's why we created proof of group. So and inside this group, there's only one ledger. Others are workers. So by this way, and also this ledger will be elected by credit system. Basically, you can call it like a POS plus POW system.
Right, and we often see that kind of model right now in many other blockchain projects of this nature. We see a combination or a hybridization of algorithms. But I did want to ask you though, let's talk specifically about Helix first, because that's the model you're using for the first year at least, and then you're going to move into the Orion later. So given that it's proof of work, let's talk about forkability and vulnerability. How are you going to prevent these kind of attacks we've seen on the original proof of work models in terms of being exposed on the blockchain?
Basically, like with proof of work, obviously you need as much node as you can. So currently we have several mining companies already joined in our league. For example, there was a big mining company in China, or another one in Vancouver. And ourselves actually also have about at least 100 nodes be able to running. And another big data center is planning to join us, provided the mining ability. And in Helix client side, the miners have what we call it dual mining mode. So the dual mining mode is that when you start the client, you can choose mining Ether as a major task, while you're listening on the Nebula AI network. While another AI task comes, you can execute the AI tasks. So by this way, they encourage you to doing the both dual mining, because the AI task usually is more profitable than Ether mining.
I see.
According to Amazon GPU calculation, the P2 instance, the same power of P2, it generates about 90 cents per hour for AI calculation tasks. In our system, it's probably like you can get 20 cents per hour for calculation task, which is still compared to Ether mining today is about $3 per day.
Wow, so it's significantly
it's
much cheaper.
Between the Acer price is dropping down. So you can
Yes.
looking forward for more profitable AI tasks that's encouraging people to running those nodes on their system.
I
And it's
see.
compatible with the Acer mining.
And in that respect, Charles, I also wanted to ask you about how you convert your hashing power, or rather, how you convert your mining hashing power into AI computing. What is interesting about proof of work is that the new or more innovative models tend to be more efficient in terms of their use of energy. So, are you different to Bitcoin in the amount of energy you're using?
Yes. Basically in the system, the first of all, we are not using Ethereum public chain. So you have in Ethereum public chain, you have too many data there because people are running different applications, and all those smart contract application with storage in your computer, which takes lots of bandwidth, lots of storage. In ours, that's only AI tasks there, so it takes much less network bandwidth. And plus, in Arion, when you're using the proof group, there's only one ledger in the group, so that's reduced a lot. Imagine you have a big data center, the entire center only one ledger there, and all the other AI units in doing the AI part, and all the AI parts actually was done through the smart contract. So those smart contract building the channel of computing and mining tasks. So, and the reason why to be able to doing the converting the hash power to AI is due to the algorithm. The algorithm of hash is using, if you're using equal hash, you're using GPU source. And if you're using the AI computing, most of the AI units now is also GPU intensive work. So that's why you'll be able to do it, because they're also both using the same GPU resource.
I see, and that is actually one of your key features. It's something that does genuinely set you apart from the other designs that we've seen in the AI space. If we could talk now about the internet itself, how exactly are you aiming to solve the problem of data consensus on the basis of traditional internet systems?
I mean, the data of internet system.
Yeah, so essentially, in your white paper, you argue that the NBAI solves the problem of data consensus, very specifically on the basis of traditional internet, given the traditional internet models and how they're designed. So how are you actually going to do that, solving that problem?
Okay, you mean the data transmission through internet?
Yes.
Yeah, that's part of the Orion work, because if you, as a why the Orion was designed. Because AI computation, it takes lots of data. Usually data is terabytes when you're doing some image training. So that's why in RM, you have to decide which group you are joining. If you have an AI task, let's say, happens in US, you want to send the task to China because the transmission across the continent is very slow. So you need to find a closest group. So for example, Silicon Valley or in the West Coast. If it's a no node in West Coast, then you will probably transmit your data to the East Coast. So the response time decided where you should join, and by this way, it lets it become less intensive. That's why if you have an AI mining center, it's very possibly you will transfer your data to the AI mining center, and inside this mining center, you have distributed all the tasks among all the workers, which is much more efficiency.
I see. And obviously you plan on building out the number of nodes as your system increases, is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. That's why we are actively working with different mining farms, because for them it's also quite an interesting point to have AI, not just because it's profitable, but it also benefits people for long term. And for example, I ask them a question of any mining farm, how long you think you'll be able to continue mining, especially with Ethereum science. Vitalik already claimed that the Ethereum will become POS, right?
Right.
the Casper
Yes.
system
Yes.
we tested last year.
Yes.
So you can assume that it will be online
Yes.
within 1 or 2 years.
Right.
So what they are going to do with your mining rigs? What they are going to do with your mining farm?
Right.
So that's the question people cannot answer. Now they found an answer to that, and then we actually is already directly working with one hardware manufacturer in China. They will provide some prototype for AI mining.
I see.
So they will change some configurations there. This is the reason why I'm traveling in China, because we are open the channel for different hardware manufacturers to make sure when a system is online, people has access to different mining machines. They're also doing the high performance computer as well.
I see. Charles, let's talk about that. That's exciting and something I certainly didn't know. Obviously, right now, there's an idea around the world that China has been averse, actually, to mining, and given that it's closed its doors to the ICO. So let's talk about that in terms of support in the Chinese, from the Chinese government, from the Chinese, I guess, industry itself. Is mining something that is actually endorsed and supported by China, or is it solely their hardware that they're going to produce to send out to other countries?
That's a very interesting point. So in China, there was a lot of rumors comes out early this year that Chinese government will ban the mining industry.
Yes.
But actually, if you travel in China, you have still found that there's still lots of mining farms. But most of them, they don't want to expose to the public.
Right.
But they're still doing the business, especially in the South China and Northwest China.
Really?
Quite largely, 10,000 of mining machines are working there. So if you ask me, this government knows that, I'm sure 10,000 mining machines too easy to find it out. If you have those 10 machines, you need to change your power system. So and actually some mining system, they have name of cloud computing.
Right.
So
the title is very clear.
Yeah. So this is a cloud computing system. But actually, if you go inside, you probably will find these mining machines, and that's something the government want to regulate. They want, if they claim to be a cloud company, it must be running cloud machine because you benefit from cloud data center policies.
I see. So essentially, you're suggesting that it's a blind eye approach. And no doubt that the focus is on, much like in even the ICO space, yes, it's banned, but they're looking at means in which they can regulate means of revenue generation from the outset, and mining is no different. They're trying to regulate the system so that the blockchain itself can be more efficient overall, because China is certainly one of the greatest proponents of blockchain anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and for the blockchain, on blockchain side, Chinese strongly support blockchain projects. So when I'm traveling in China now, I can easily get funding from Chinese government in Beijing, Shanghai, or Guangzhou. They dedicate millions of dollars for blockchain project development.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, they really support it. And but there's still something unclear about tokens. So they don't allow you to sell tokens. Because there's too many fake tokens there. People just grab the money, claim they have technology, but they do nothing and just run away. That generates lots of chaos. That's why Chinese government banned the entire ICO industry here. But they don't see that if you're doing something in US, we call it utility tokens.
Yes.
So if utility tokens, how to doing with that? They don't see that you cannot do it. But how to tell it's a utility token or not a utility token, that's something not clear yet.
Yes, I think around the world, to be honest, Charles, it's still very nebulous. With no pun intended with your project, but it's still very unclear exactly what is a security and what is an exchange. If we could talk now, let's firstly address the mining aspect. What is exciting, you've made it very clear, is that people are going to now, who have invested their money into mining machines, they can utilize these on your blockchain.
Yeah.
So they can reutilize them to suit their needs using proof of work models.
Yeah. So currently we fully support the NVIDIA mining rigs, and we are opening the new algorithm for AMD mining machines because the AMD is not compatible with AI computing very well.
Okay.
And I would notice that there are actually a large market portion of the mining rigs are AMD mining machines. For example, the RX 470, RX 570, RX 580. So basically, for those mining rigs, the obviously is not supporting the TensorFlow because a large part of the AI calculation is using TensorFlow. They don't support that well in the CUDA calculation. Oh, sorry. But
okay.
this part can be used for other high computer intensive calculations. For example, image rendering.
Right.
For example, some calculation about the protein and the biomedical engineer. Those parts can be reused. So we're also investigating the support of AMD cards, but that's not the priority for the moment. Maybe we'll do it around the July or August, because it's not part of our white paper to support this tasks. But we just maybe have the opportunity there.
I see. Now, with every good blockchain, and obviously there's many exciting things that you're doing, there's existing challenges as you've outlined. Some of the aspects of pre-existing models are such that they're highly centralized, their data security and privacy issues, maintenance costs, and the list goes on. Yep. So could you tell us, from your perspective, what are the primary existing challenges of previous models that you've really tried to address?
So, the major thing the problem we are trying to solve first is data partition and the distribution.
Right.
So if we solve that problem, that means, let's say for now, one mining rig usually have 7 to 10 mining cards. So when you start solving the AI problem, you want to distribute all the tasks to 7 to 10 cards. Mm-hmm. But usually, for current drivers, people are already doing it with 2 or 3 cards. So that's a big difference. Mm-hmm. So that's part, if you can complete that task, which means you can accelerate the general AI tasks by 5 to 10 times faster. That benefits a lot.
Right.
And yeah, so that's one of the major things we're working on. And we're working with a professor from Concordia, Yan.
Yes.
Yeah. She has been focused on the research for a couple of years, so we can working with her. Mm-hmm. Another one we are working on is encryption. How to make sure your data and your model, when you submit a task to the blockchain and people take it and start using it, they don't take the data, they don't take the model for themselves. Mm-hmm. So the encryption and the transmission of data and give it back is very important, and this part we're working with Thomas professor, who is specialized in this domain in data encryption for about 10 years.
Right, so you've really chosen some highly qualified, I guess, not just professors, but experts in the blockchain arena and encryption arena to really develop and build out your blockchain fundamentals. Yep. But I wanted to ask you also, with regard to the infamous nature of BTC, obviously there's many great things about it, including its provability. But one of the challenges that it faced was its forkability, and its constant forkability, as we've seen. So given that you are a proof-of-work model, should we be worried about the forkable nature of your blockchain?
I mean, fork of the entire system?
Yes. Is it possible for us to fork your system so we can have another token emerge, as we've seen many times over?
Oh, yes. That is absolutely in any system now. It's quite normal people can fork it, right?
I would argue that it's not normal for every blockchain, though. Some have different algorithms that do not do that. Yours, being a proof of work, can allow it, but there are others, such as DBFTs, PBFTs, and the list goes on, where they do not fork from the front end. So you argue it's natural, and it's okay?
Yeah, because for now, the Helix system is based on proof of work. So basically, there's nothing we can do to prevent the people to fork it. And you can fork as many as you want, but the problem is that after you fork, you still need to develop on top of it, you still need to contribute different mining nodes to allow access system. And just like I would like to say that because this one, the AI blockchain is an economic system. It's not just a simplified that yes, it's a Bitcoin. Yes, it's Ethereum. You focus the code, you get the entire system. But in our case, it's not. You still need to find lots of enough nodes.
Right.
You still need to find enough tasks who is willing to run it on top of your blockchain.
Yes.
So this kind of economic system, you cannot just build it because you have some nodes.
Right.
It doesn't work.
But Charles, the issue I have to discuss with you is that in the past we've seen when they fork, even the name of the actual token becomes known as a different entity. For example, we've seen BTC move across to BCH and many others. So if Nebula AI was to fork, it wouldn't be Nebula AI as its new emergent entity that comes forth as a result of forking. So are you concerned about that? That new names come and split essentially your system?
Well, honestly, I won't worry much about it. For example, when BTC has a fork named BCH, if you look at the value now, BCH is only 10% of BTC. And for Ethereum, there was a fork name called ETF. That's like just recent listing on exchanges, and the price is not even 10%.
Right.
So, which means even you fork it, you have a similar name, people still will take the first one as the major one. And another good example is still Ethereum. When Ethereum doing a hard fork due to the DAO accident,
yes,
the ETC and ETH is split to two branches, and obviously, like Ethereum is much more accepted by compared to ETC, right?
Right.
So that's why I'm not really concerned about the forks.
I see.
Because fork is only take 10%, even though it can do, it's only 10% of the market.
I see. So you're focused on how history's played out in terms of the original source of a blockchain being the focus of the people.
Exactly.
Okay. If we could talk about now some of the other aspects as well, just in terms of your AI engineering training centers, you mentioned the centers involved. Obviously that's an objective that you're trying to build into your plan. What's involved? Are you building centers right now, or is that in the discussion with your team?
I already have one AI training center in Montreal. The first we started the AI training at the same time where we are doing the Nebula AI blockchain, and the first 20 students is already almost graduated. It's a 24 hours course split by 2 months. So we launched the Nebula AI project in January. So now the first the term 1 students almost graduated, and after graduated they enter to different universities and or industries. So in the course, we not just teach them how to using the AI, those models. We also give them credits to using the Nebula AI system. They can use the Nebula AI hash power to doing the calculation, and those support coming from the Nebula AI foundations. That's why there was a allocation about 25% in foundation. Some people was questioning us why you have 25% of the allocation coins for the foundation, which is comparatively larger than other projects.
Right.
Yeah. Because the reason is that if you want to push people to moving from current system to AI system, you obviously spend lots of coins to pushing people to use it. And this part is different from other projects. You just need to give them the coins, it's done. But this part is different. You need to give them facilities, the training, encouragement. Just like the early market, when Amazon have their own cloud system, the Google have their cloud system. When they are doing marketing, they spend lots of effort on that. So the same thing on our side.
It's great to know also that you're incentivizing those who have the skill sets to really build out the beginnings, because you're approaching universities and those who really are passionate about utilizing the AI token itself in a really robust way. So interesting strategy. Have you met with many other universities as you're building out this approach?
Yeah, actually, I'm in China now. This afternoon, I have a meeting with Beijing Jiaotong University to talk about the possibility to build a training center together. So after training, like the university in China, they will give certificates to the students and also make the training course as one course in their studies. So that we are greatly encouraging people using it.
Wow.
So we see about 5 universities in China. Most of them are very interesting about the project because in China, there were 2 major industries was strongly supported. One is AI, another one is blockchain, and we have both.
Yes, very interesting. And that's really quite innovative considering what's happening right now in the market. You've mentioned the reduction in energy costs that you're working on, but if we could talk a bit more about the how of this, it's quite significant as one of your key objectives. You want to essentially convert the GPU mining machines into AI computing services. This is quite revolutionary. Can you talk a bit more about this specifically?
Yeah, for this system, like because there was only one ledger in the entire system, so all the other nodes are working in AI computing power. So just imagine when you're doing the Bitcoin mining in China or in some, for example, ice island, right? People are think that they export the electricity value to the world, but actually it's not. So the value you export is the Bitcoin itself. The electricity actually is still consumed during the hash calculation. It doesn't generate very obvious economic value. But if it's AI task, it's quite different because imagine AI company in Silicon Valley, they want to solve an AI problem, and it sends these AI tasks to some computers in China. And China finished the computing work and send back the result to Silicon Valley. Those value exchanges doing perfectly. You not just cost the electricity, you also contribute the result to technology. So this is quite different from point of view of energy consuming. To make it more efficient and it's more economic value.
Absolutely. And considering that as we've talked about before, Bitcoin itself is the original POW model, the very first we've seen emerge as a blockchain project from the white paper. But is it your position that you are allowing for people and users, given your utility model, to move away from models such as the original design of I guess, Bitcoin, because you're providing a very similar proof-of-work model, but in a much more efficient sense, and you're coupling that with AI? Are you providing for new solutions for miners to move away from projects like that?
Yeah, the way we encouraging people, the miners, moving away from Bitcoin mining and Ethereum mining to AI mining is because next generation AI will be strong needs and it will become the most profitable industry soon. Just like the early stage people moving from desktop to internet. Now it will move to internet, blockchain, and AI. So by the encouraging system, because of the the value increasing, I don't think there any reason people still want to mining instead of AI calculation. Since AI calculation is more profitable, I don't think there's any reason we stick with it. So the only problem we need to solve is find a more user scenario, build more decentralized AI applications, so to allow people to have enough tasks to mining, not just like waiting there to calculate some useless. So that's why I'm traveling all across the world to find the essential needs of the AI, to converting those AI to become tasks in our system. We need to have as many tasks as possible before September.
I see. And obviously, you're trying to build out the utility and really let people know that you are utility focused. If we could talk about the integrated IPFS distributed storage system that you are trying to build out, how's that going?
The IPFS is something we are looking forward to moving to, but not now. The reason is simple. The IPFS is obviously is the next generation storage model in blockchain. So at the end, if everything is decentralized, there's no way you can avoid using IPFS.
Right.
Because
exactly.
You need decentralized storage. But however, the IPFS storage solution itself is not so mature yet. Lots of teams, different companies is working on it.
Yes.
So for us, it's not so efficiency if we working on the same solutions. Because for us, it's more focused on AI, not the storage. We raise funds go is not for IPFS. We're not an IPFS company. So basically, we are working in our system. We are still using IPFS in the future, and it will be a cross-chain solution.
Right.
So basically, it will be an internal exchange system to allow people to converting the Nebula AI tokens to IPFS tokens, so they can using to pay for the IPFS costs.
But it makes sense. So that's part of your roadmap later on. If we could talk about now one of the more exciting things of blockchain, startups, particularly when they have their own ledger, and that is apps. Obviously, you're planning on developing more decentralized AI apps in the future. What is the plan specifically with those?
Currently, there are two major directions we are focusing on. One is financial. Another one is biomedical engineering. The reason of the select these two directions is financial is always the most profitable place. People are more interested in using it. For example, with the one reason people like Nebula AI is because Nebula have a very interesting decentralized app we call it Quant AI.
Yes.
It gives the ability to predict the Ethereum price in the next 30 minutes.
Right. Wow.
So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it takes the real-time data from Poloniex and doing the training based on those data and give a prediction about how the pricing is going to be in the next 30 minutes.
Okay.
And if it's accurate enough, people can do high-frequent trading based on it. That attracts lots of people's interest. And some people in private sales are even asking how much tokens we need to buy in order to use the system in the future.
Yes.
So that's one approach. Another is biomedical engineering, because with image biometrics, there was image processing about find out some tumors or some bones problem by image process. Those parts also cause lots of AI calculation consumptions, and also it have a strong
use case.
Economic benefits.
I see. Yes, and obviously many different hospitals, many different medical institutions are going to certainly benefit from your project.
Yeah, and there was a lot of gene company in US and China, those two big markets there. That's why we spend 3 weeks in China now, because we need to make sure this real needs, not just something created by people's mind. We saw lots of people writing them in their white paper trying to create demands. We want to make sure this is real demand, not created demand.
Sure. I mean, obviously it's a great segue into discussions of partnerships. I will leave many of the partnership discussions to later, but I do want to broach this one. You mentioned previously some other projects such as Matrix, and Matrix has explained that yes, perhaps their code is not revealed to many of the majority of the world. Perhaps they're deciding to not show all their code, but certainly they are building out their blockchain in specific places like banking institutions and hospitals, arguably some of the biggest in China. So are you also doing the same? Are you consulting and discussing with hospitals, banks and institutions to really allow them to build in your blockchain project into their systems?
Yeah, for sure. That's part of the plan. And for those institutions, but the reality is there that we are using the blockchain system, but they probably not won't be doing it through the public blockchain. That's something we have to make it clear, because it's not realistic to let the banks put their data in a public blockchain. It just doesn't work.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
let's talk about that. Aren't you? Yeah. You are coupling a permissioned and a permissionless design. It's not solely permission alone, as you're alluding to. It's both.
Yeah, because like we don't want to give something like permission, different levels of provisions and the privilege system. Then if that happens, people were asking why you're just not using Fabric.
Exactly. Why aren't you just a database?
Yeah. So basically, the AI project we are working on is for public, something like the quantity AI.
Right.
So they give you the ability of prediction, but it's not specific to any institution. It's not using the internal data. So it won't have some data leak, some things like that, which is, bank system, they're not so exciting about open the data to the world. That's not their favorite thing.
And Charles, you've made that clear, but I just want to clarify with you, given that you are aiming to discuss this with enterprise as an enterprise solution, and certainly with banks as an example, hospitals and many other different industries, you're alluding to the importance of permission blockchain designs. Are you going to have an element of permission in your robust plan that utilizes and works with these companies, as well as having a public blockchain?
Yes, we have planned that about that for sure, because the companies will have strong interest in that. Just like in Linux, you will have Red Hat and CentOS. So commercial version and public community version. So in blockchain world, I'm sure in the future most blockchain will become two versions: public version and the enterprise version and the community version. So basically, they have the same code base, but some component will be different.
Exactly, and that's what we've seen Neo do itself. Obviously, I've researched that, and they started off that way. And we're seeing many of these really successful blockchains, such as yourself, emerge with this coupling of these two elements, and the fundamentals are similar. If we could now move across, that's a perfect segue into the two major components of Nebula AI. You have the NBAI Foundation and the NBAI System. Could you tell us more specifically about the foundation, what it is, and what it's for?
The major task for the foundation is promotion the Nebula AI system across the world to let people understand what the Nebula AI is doing and why we need to use Nebula AI. So there are several marketing and supporting work. For example, when people start to contribute in Nebula AI in different ways, not just the coding, so they maybe have some bounty program. So this part of will be given by the Nebula AI Foundation. Another example for supporting, for example, or in some regions, set up some AI processing centers. They need technology support, people support to help them doing that. We need to send engineers helping them, so to build a global network. So that's another part of the Nebula AI Foundation. And for set up the training center for people who want to join the Nebula community about how to use the system, how to implement all those AI apps to their current solutions. It also is supported by Nebula AI Foundation. So there's lots of work need to be done by the foundation part.
I see. And what about in terms of governance, Charles, with regard to the core team having some sort of position and control over the network? Is that the case now with the foundation, or is that a separate part?
Mostly because Nebula AI system is strongly based on communities. So the governance is not the major goal of because I don't really like the governance, because it makes it more like a centralized system.
Right.
So for Nebula Foundation, it's more about suggestions. So like people to select like the community, like what we wanted to do, what is the next goal we want to achieve. For example, if we want to add a new component, so what is we are listening to the communities like do we really want to make this the priority or not? So it's more like election by the people instead of one central foundation that okay, we want to do this one, we want to do that one. That's why in our community, we will found that in our Telegram groups, people are very active asking about technology features, and we actually very happy to answer all the questions they ask, and we are doing it very transparently because that is a major difference from us and many other projects.
Yes.
If you go to many other projects, Telegram, you'll find lots of people was asking about when is the airdrop.
Yes.
When is you going to listing on exchange? How much time? How much you can make profit? But because ultimately it's a utility token, so how it can benefit people's daily life and the research will be the most important thing.
I see. So you have an educated audience and community participation. That's just great. If you could tell us a little bit more about the NBAI system, because that's the other part. That's the other component of your two, bifurcated models. In a nutshell, could you tell us a bit more about the NBAI system?
So the NBAI system, there was in our white paper there was 3 layers. So the first layer is the infrastructure layer. So the mining clients, the blockchain, so they added together becomes the infrastructure layer, which provides the hash AI calculation pool for the entire system. The second layer is the decentralized AI apps system. So the decentralized AI apps, they extract the calculation power from the infrastructure and provide a service to the clients. So the third layer is the utility layer. So which means people building on top of those 2 layers. They have SDK support. They have RESTful service support. So people don't need to directly communicate with smart contracts. They can build on top of that. So this is a third level, and this level, the contributors, developers of the applications, the end user of the system, and the data mining providers, they're working together.
I see. So it's quite a sophisticated system with its layering design.
Yeah, story-like design to make people. So it sounds very complicated, but actually when you use it for developers, it's easy because they only need to communication with SDK and REST processes. They don't need to worry about low-level design, and that makes their life easier. And for the end users, they only use decentralized apps. They don't care about the smart contracts and those APIs. That's not their concern.
I see. And having the SDK is also a very important feature that you are integrating into it. If we could talk about now your speed, in that you are aiming to be, given with your API and your SDK inclusions, that's going to increase the speed itself. So how are you going? Can we talk about more the process of scalability, speed, and just overall competitive position in the market in this sense?
So, so basically, like for the marketing, in marketing side, like we're doing more like in enterprise level and public level as well. So the 2 major parts we listed. That one part is foundation supported project. Another one is third party support project. Third party project is like the images processing, the biomedical industry. So we're building lots of connections with those organizations to take the advantage of the marketing at the moment. Because lots of projects now they are going to different shows to increase the exposure. But actually, you need to visit different company, talk direct to them to encourage them to use it.
I totally agree. I think that's where you're going to. So you're essentially going right to the source of the enterprise, traditional market place.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that in the context, though, of the enterprise solution on the blockchain, because right now we're seeing many different projects emerge with multi-chain solutions, with side-chain solutions, with scaling solutions. In your white paper, it explains that you are providing some of those solutions, and that would work perfectly with the efforts you're making to go and see these entities and these companies. So are you in fact addressing some of the needs of enterprise on the blockchain whereby they can now use it? Because original models of blockchain, even in the first and second iterations, were just not scalable enough.
Yeah. For scalability, it depends on the transactions. So lots of people are questioning about the transaction speed or something like that.
Or even even computation itself.
Yeah, computation is something like is really easy to solve because when you have lots of miners, because it's building by smart contracts, it's not something like the proof of work. All the nodes running the same task, then finish the first task, then all the nodes was competing for the second task. That's not very efficiency. Building on smart contracts which means there's only one node or two nodes or several nodes running the task. It depends on how many tasks, subtasks you divided.
I see.
So, yeah, that's something like I forgot to mention. In Nebula AI, when we get a AI task, it's not necessary to be a big task. It will be split by some small tasks, distributed on different workers to finish work, then aggregate all the result back to system.
I see. To make it more efficient.
So that's provide a very good scalability, and that's why, as I mentioned earlier, we are working with universities, focusing on solve this one as a first priority.
Okay. So let's talk about the motivations behind doing something like that, and that is enterprise, no doubt. That's where the big money comes in. So let's go back into that discussion of enterprise. How are you usable now in the enterprise space, when many blockchains are not yet?
Wow, that's a very interesting topic because our part compared to other blockchain products is much easier to use by them. The reason is that in lots of big enterprises, they already have lots of high performance computers there. They just need running the blockchain system and claim them together. Then the tokens can be used. So one reason lots of companies is not interesting about reuse all the capitalization source because there's nothing for them to make it for profit. Because I give you the hard power, but and the computation power. So what can I get? They cannot answer those questions.
Right. I see.
But when blockchain comes with a token economic system, it's easy to answer. With smart contracts, I give you the calculation power. You give me the tokens, and the token is valuable. So that's easy to solve.
Absolutely. So you're making it very clear. If we can talk now about some of the cutting-edge technology aspects of your design, you promoted them very clearly. You've spoken of one, which is the quant AI. Now, you also have two others, the sentiment analysis and the writing recognition components. Can you tell us about both of those briefly?
Okay, that's actually those two. The sentiment analysis actually is a sub-project of the quantum AI. Okay. So quantum AI is doing the prediction. The prediction of the pricing according to the past price change happens in the history. So based on the past experience, the building the predictions.
Sure.
However, the sentiment analysis is from another perspective. So the sentiment analysis like that, when you're writing a sentence, it tells you if you are positive or negative. For example, if people were saying that on Twitter, Bitcoin is crashing now, Ethereum has no future, we want to sell out all our coins.
Right.
Those are significant, some bad signals for the coins.
I see.
Which means it have a potential of dropping down in the future. And when this happens, we need to give a bad signal to the system of prediction. And so when sentiment analysis plus the quantum AI, it will give you more precise predictions compared to the system currently we have.
I see.
So So like the things happened recently, and also there was some kind of big data engine behind it to support it, the prediction.
I see.
And
So
others like, yeah.
so it's essentially part of a strong predictive engine that you have built into your design.
Yeah, but sentiment analysis can be used not just for prediction about the market. They are also using for other purpose. For example, the real-time training of the language to customize your voice or something like that. So when you enter, for example, when smart home, when you enter the home, you can build your application to change the environment, the light, the music, according to what you are talking.
I
So when
see.
they got a really bad day or they have a day, that's something like you can change it accordingly to your mode.
I
But
see.
how can you know if you're happy or not? This can be used. So
So
it's very interesting
so
project.
it's essentially it's a performance enhancing tool to provide for better, make it more performant on the blockchain and even in real life.
Yeah.
Let's talk about now the exciting topic of partners. Initially, when I read through your partners, many of them I don't know. Certainly, there's a vast list of them. You mentioned one very important one, that was Concordia. There's strong links between yourselves as a project and Concordia University as well. So your partners essentially were those who initially were interested and wanted to support you for the long term. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, with Concordia, actually the reason we are strong in partnership with Concordia University is that actually I was graduated from Concordia, master's degree.
I noticed
so,
that.
And we get and when I was doing my master's degree in Concordia, I get the NSERC, which is natural and research funding from the government when I was even doing a master's degree. So now we are working with Concordia professors doing the MedTechs. So this is a research and internship system provided by the government. The government will give you half the funds. For example, you spend about $100,000 for all those employees and students to participate or elaborate in your system. You can benefit 50% from the cost.
I see. And you've also no doubt had support from other universities such as McGill University, because obviously they're listed, and again, moving back into other projects, you've had strong support. So we won't list them all. They're available in the white paper for those who want to look at. But the key is that you've had, from the outset, a lot of I guess, university support and also private sector support, and then perhaps even government support, because the word Canada is even in your list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So for that part is that for innovation company, usually Canada give you 35% reimbursement for the researches.
I see. So is that also, Charles, why you sought to get so much support in Canada? Because there is so much, they are such strong supporters of the blockchain?
Yes, it's not just blockchain. It's essentially there's for now blockchain in Canada is still in development stage, so lots of funding is not fully open yet. But for AI, there's lots of funding is already opened for supporting that. So we not just get the support from the Canada government, and we will also benefit from Chinese government on the blockchain infrastructure, not ICO. For sure.
Okay, that's great. If we could talk about now your strategic investors as well. You have some very outstanding names listed here. You have Feng Shui Capital, you have Consensus Capital. What's really impressed me is you have Interchain as well listed, a very prominent one from the US, and MW Partners, another very well-respected entity in Singapore. So with these very strong strategic partners, you clearly must be confident that you have strong financial backing.
Yeah, exactly. They involve the project in a very early stage actually. So the first investors coming in our projects. They have a lot. They're doing a lot of advice work about how to building the communities, how to doing the marketing, and also about the regulations, all the different aspects. They help us a lot. And there are also other investors and partners we don't list there yet because we want to make sure everybody is feel comfortable to list them there. There are some organizations that don't want to list there, but they are doing lots of support work. So next week we are listing more partners on our website, some of them is from hardware company, somewhere is from data centers. So you will see these names after.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about, again, we've talked about everything else in terms of your partners, your strategic partners, but we haven't talked about your team. Without mentioning each one individually, I've written down some key assets, I suppose, and skill sets that they provide. You are clearly very focused on the tech. What, in your opinion, is the biggest feature of your team?
In our team, the most important skills we have are learning from different, not just us, we're also learning from different other projects, and we integrate the different components together and also we're listening to the community. That was the interesting part, like we get some help from community. One biologist in Europe, he would like to open his calculation computers to assist in our work. And this new type of machine is very interesting. So we're working together to build in the system.
Wow,
and also
great.
Another groups is involved. So that the development across the world in the early stage is already happening. It's not like lots of projects. They really focus on a small community. In the very beginning, we get from investment, we get Singapore investment, some investment from India, from
US.
Romania, US, and Russia. So this is really a international project. It's not some project that only focused on, for example, China only,
or Canada,
or major in China, or major in India, major in Korea. It's not that. From the private funding raise, we are so happy that we get the funding from all across the world instead of one or two big institutions provide all the funding, and then all the others is just like stand by.
That's fantastic. So your global reach is already very strong. But again, going back to your team, the fundamental skill sets appear to be the expertise in blockchain, the expertise
exactly.
So
blockchain is a major skill set.
Yep. And no doubt your team, you plan to build out your team as you grow?
Yeah, for sure. Like actually in Montreal, we are moving to a new office next month. So we need a larger space. We also is going to open a blockchain training course for people to join us, and we're also planning to set up the same course in China and the US. So we have lots of developers join us. We're not just take people from market, but we also training them, because training is really a very strong aspect of our Nebula AI. We started a training course from Java, Python, automation, lots of course since 2016.
Right.
So this is for us open a training course, converting developers to blockchain developers is not a difficult task for us.
I see. So you really are building out your name across the globe in many different ways. If we could talk about now your prototypes, you mentioned this previously in your demos. They're available on your website, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So if you go to the Nebula AI website, in the middle, you will see that there is a part where 3 icons there. If you click icon, it will open a tab on the browser, and there are also instructions we post on YouTube. If you tell you how to install the wallet instead until how to get it to work. There's another link at the bottom to give you free coins for testing.
I see. Now, I just wanted to finish off discussing some key issues as well with you, Charles, with regard to blockchain readiness. It's great that we can go and access the demos. They're very fundamental to be able to understand where you're positioned right now. You made it very clear that you've back mapped and you've really planned out the code and then the prototypes. So that's great that you have access. But just in terms of blockchain readiness, we've seen many projects that aren't simply ready for the blockchain. You're arguing that you entirely are. So what's the next steps in terms of the rollout of your design? Are you confident that you are ready and that you couple with the capacities of blockchain now?
Yes, we are actually. Like the testnet is already online. The mainnet was aiming at September. Actually, we are planning to move it earlier because there's too many people asking access to doing the mining calculation for us. So and our development progress is really well. So we are planning to like get the mainnet online early. It's possible like we will launch it before September, like October or July, even is possible.
Right. So just to clarify, not October because that's subsequent to, or that's later than September, but July is a possibility given you are ahead of on your roadmap.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
because
exciting.
I understand that. So because our blockchain had two parts, right? AI and the blockchain. So we need working on blockchain at the same time we're working on AI. So now the AI progresses really well. People want to use the product. So
okay, well, let's talk about perhaps one of the most exciting topics for the majority of listeners, and that is your token, your NBAI token itself. It's a utility token, as we've made clear, but it has three cases of application. It has the development, the use of DAI apps, and the purchases of DAI training services, which is quite robust in itself. But in terms of numbers, let's talk about the facts. How many tokens? What's it built on in terms of, is it ERC20? Let's elaborate on those facts now.
Okay. So before the mainnet was online, so the ERC20 tokens is just approved that you own the future tokens.
Right. Yep. As an interim token. Right.
Yeah.
Almost a futures token.
Yeah. So like when you get the mainnet ready, you were doing the swap between those. That's like a yields. You have the mapping between tokens and the those mainnet tokens.
Right.
So that part will be done.
Sure. Okay, now let's talk about the number of tokens. My understanding is you've got 6.7 billion tokens. That seems like a lot. Why do you have so many?
That's the interesting part. So in the beginning, when we design the system, because when we're doing the comparison of the Amazon service, so we started calculation by cent.
I see.
So US cent. So we want to make one token equivalent to 1 US cent. Now it's less 1 US cent because the Ether price was dropping down.
Yes.
But in the future, we are not bonding to the Ether price. It are more close to the real usage, because the reason is simple. Since it's utility token, so how much power you can provide in the market and how much power was consumption can make your price a little bit different. So that's more like a bid system. And that's why in the beginning when we designed, it becomes 6.7 billion, because according to the funds we want to raise and the total hard cap and everything, if you market each of them 1 cent, you can see that we would like the total cap will be about 67 million US dollars.
I see. So you've really thought about that in your design. Obviously, some key dates with regard to your ICO. Let's talk about that. Now, you have an equivalent of 1 ETH to 100,000 NBAI set up for your ICO. That ran from January right through to the excuse me, the end of this month, the end of March 2018. And you have a cap of, as I understand, 18,000 ETH for the original. Those who want to support the utility at that stage, at the pre-sale stage. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So very soon we're going to move across into the next phase. Soon you're going to be finished a pre-sale. How is everything going with the process of your ICO? And what's the next phase for you?
The pre-ICO is going really well. We get lots of requests. So almost every 10 minutes I get a request about the allocations. So it goes really well. We are very happy to see that. Even the market is low at the moment, but still get a lot of requests from time to time. People show strong interest. And for the public ICO, we already have more than 40,000 Ether allocation requests signing up already in our system.
In your whitelist.
And the Economies is coming.
That's very impressive.
And then we put a cap for everybody in the public sale. For public sale, the range from 0.1 Ether to 50 Ether. So we limit the coins each person can buy. So even though we still have lots of people signing up for every day.
Of course.
So at the end of March, we're pretty confident about that.
It's quite a generous cap, though. I mean, we've seen many others where you can only it's limited to 1 ETH, 2 ETH. You're limiting it to 50. So the majority of people out there who are considering supporting your utility, I would imagine many of them can do so with that kind of cap.
Yeah.
If we could talk about now your distribution model, you've mentioned some very important facts before, so we won't go into them with your foundation. But what's interesting is that you've allocated 45% of your overall distribution model to the private placement. That's quite a large portion of your funds. You're only allocating, as I understand, a smaller amount for the public placement. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why have you done that?
So the 45% is so to public. We want the people to have those tokens, and so they hold those tokens. So when the major net is online, people can widely use it. And consider that we have even in the early phase in the Telegram that were already across the world, the global. Lots of people were already started interested in the project. So we can assume that there was a lots of people want to hold those tokens, so we want to distribute it as much as possible. And with private sale, what we can see is that we also give a limit to each institution who want to participate in the token sale to make sure those tokens not centralized, intensive to hold by each organizations.
I see. Charles, it's just a slight lighting issue that's happened now. I can't quite see you. But just with regard to your lockup, if you could adjust the lighting perhaps somehow in your end so I can see you. It's difficult to see your outline at the moment.
Sorry, lockup time?
No, I was just saying that I couldn't see you. That's much better. Now, in terms of lockup, what's interesting is to improve the scarcity of your token. You've locked up the tokens for the founders and they slowly thaw over a 3-year period. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the people asking a lot. You locked that for the founders. How about the organization and others? What we can see is that we locked all the 55 tokens for everybody in the 3 years.
Yeah.
So to make sure people, the foundation and all the developers currently working on it, and even early investors, they don't run away and just crash market in the early stage. So they need to wait until the end of 3 years to get all the tokens. So this is another signal shows that we strongly believe our project will be success. So if your project will be success at the end, why you are rush get all the tokens in the first 3 months, right? It doesn't make sense.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. So in that sense, talking about the projections, the roadmap itself is very robust. I've had a look. It's very far-reaching, goes all the way to 2020. If you could tell us, let's say, 3 things that really excite you, though, for this year, for 2018, in terms of your roadmap, what would they be?
Well, the most exciting thing is about the token economic. So, before the ICO starts, people is so difficult to get fundings from VCs. They set lots of obstacles. They asking lots of questions which is not necessary, and they forget the big thing is that the project success depends on people who build it. It's not just and also the code itself, and that part is what was in lots of cases make your life very difficult. With the ICO, good projects, I have to see that some bad projects also get some funding. But the most important is that is a good project also get funding easier, which can make our development quite fast.
Right.
So that's one of the most exciting things in the entire token economic.
Sure.
And,
so you're pro ICO. You've made that clear. But what about in the future of this year, in terms of things going to roll out for Nebula AI? The most exciting
most exciting things for me will be that with the biomedical engineering and the financial part landing in our system, and also the 3 major problems we were mentioned before. Because if we solve all the problems as we designed, I can imagine that it have potential to replace the Amazon AI computing and Google Cloud AI computing. That is a big feature I was really exciting to see, and also to let people stop buying new miners just for Bitcoin and Ethereum and contribute in the more generalized global work in AI computing. That's something I'm really eager to say, because after the mainnet was online in September.
Mm-hmm.
That will come true.
Right, and it's going to be very exciting when we see that you have your native token emerge in September, or perhaps even earlier, with your mainnet release. What is exciting also with regard to Helix, you mentioned that previously. That's likely to come on board in Q3, as I understand. So
Yeah.
that's a huge change from the proof of work to the proof of group initiative. And Orion's going to come to the fore next year. It's exciting. So a lot of things happening this year and next year for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happens. We're growing the teams. We're distributed all across the world.
Right.
That's the most exciting things because building a global company in network in the early stage, this is something really interesting. So in regular companies work, usually they start from a small place, then they open a new office, a second new office. But with blockchain development, you start from globally in the very beginning. So
Sure.
that's a very interesting thing.
So in 2019, what I found very interesting in your roadmap is that you've estimated down to specific numbers of apps, of the DAI apps that you plan to build onto your blockchain. And so on Q3 2019, you suggest 10. Then you go across, and my apologies if that's incorrect, but you've also suggested from there to have 50, as I understand, by 220, and then 500. Perhaps those numbers are slightly wrong in terms of the timing, but certainly the number of planned DAI apps is correct. So how did you do that? How did you estimate those specifics?
Well, it's because so there was the curve is always like this. In the very beginning, it's growing slowly, and all of a sudden,
exponential.
Yeah. That's a normal curve happens.
Sure.
And actually, we're very conserved about the numbers. As you see, actually, we already have 1 or 2 running on test night.
Correct.
So actually, when Orion was online, I believe it won't be only 1 or 2. I think it will be more than 10 because in 1 year, even just the foundation that building lots of apps. And don't forget that there are also lots of students we are training. They have different projects. They are working on it. So it will quite a lot.
So essentially, what you're saying is this is a very conservative model, and more likely it'll be much earlier than that. So finally, Charles Cao, it's been a privilege to speak with you. You're very knowledgeable about your project, no doubt. Your vision for the next, let's say, few months, or as a final statement, what would you like to say to all those people who've been researching about Nebula AI, who have certainly been involved in supporting the utility? What would you say to them as a final message?
I would like to appreciate their help in all those days with us. They gave us lots of ideas. They gave us lots of suggestions what we should do, where we should go, and also they show strong demands of using it in their daily life. So I would really like to say that thank you to everybody, and I encourage them to join our community, give us the advice, and help us in different ways. So thanks everybody, because that's the community is essential to make us strong.
There's no doubt that I'm sure the community would appreciate it. And on behalf of all the people who've wanted to know more, thank you sincerely for your time today. I appreciate you're very busy. We've learned a great deal. You are the co-founder of a very exciting new blockchain entity, a very robust and independent blockchain design. You're certainly not building on something else. And certainly all indicators are that you're going to integrate blockchain and AI in a very innovative way. You're back mapping from code. And that's something I don't often hear, I can say, from my experience as having the privilege of speaking with CEOs. So Charles, thank you very much for your time today. And if you'd like to know more, you can certainly go to the Telegram or other modes of social media. But for now, I'm going to be following you, as are many people around the world, as you evolve into a very exciting enterprise-ready blockchain.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, and it's a really pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you, Charles.